currently 9:30 and we are on air. I will go ahead and call the regular meeting of Third Laguna Hills Mutual Board of Directors, a California nonprofit mutual benefit corporation, to order. It is Tuesday, May 17th, 9:30 a.m., and we are here in the boardroom, and we have a quorum present. I will now ask Director Franco if you would please lead us in the pledge. Thank you, Director Franco. I'll now acknowledge that the media is probably watching and ask for an approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? I see Director Bada. Are you moving, Director Bada?
Yes. But I also want to say something, if you don't mind.
About the agenda?
No.
Then at the moment, I'll call that out of order. We're just trying to get the agenda approved. That's where we are.
Yeah.
So you're moving the agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Second for the agenda at this point? Director Cook seconds the agenda. Any discussion about the agenda? Hearing none, agenda is approved. Now, Director Bada, what do you want to say?
I wanted to say that while we were still in the process of doing the pledge, I wanted to say a word of condolence to and the things that happened at our neighboring church, and pass our sincere condolences and recognition of what is going on around us. So if you guys wish, we can stand and say a moment of silence.
I think that would certainly be appropriate, and I think all of us share your sentiment that we are very concerned about any time there's violence as it relates to any people, and especially any hate violence is especially reprehensible. And I think we all would take and stand for a moment of silence out of respect for those who were injured as well as lives lost. So thank you.
Thank you. Hey, thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right. Approval of minutes. Can I get a motion to approve both sets of minutes? Director McCary moves, Director Cook seconds. Any adjustments, changes, deletions, corrections related to those minutes? Hearing none, I will go ahead then and assume by consent that the minutes are approved as submitted unless I hear otherwise. Not hearing any dissent, both sets of minutes are approved. Report of the chair. Director Bada, you stole my thunder. I was going to talk specifically about what happened, but I appreciate you bringing it to our attention.
Yes.
It is something that I think we're all very concerned about, what happened. Basically, even though it was outside the village, it happened to us. And it happened to our neighbors. It happened to our friends. And I think we need to all speak out against it. I think we need to do what's necessary to try to make sure that those kinds of things never happen again. Moving on from that, we'll now go to the VMS board update. Director Delorenzo. And she has with us a prop.
Good morning, Mr. President, hardworking third board members, our great VMS staff.
Is your mic on?
Yeah, is it on?
Can you turn it up a little bit?
Do I have to say it again? No, I don't think so. Okay, and our wonderful third residents. To go into what Kush brought up, I would like us to really thank the staff for their quick action on Sunday. And also, I heard a lot about Lynn Jarrett's incredible help at Gate 14. Nice, very positive thing, so don't get... So thank you. I didn't even know any of it was going on because I had just had work done on my knee. But thank you, Lynn, and thank you all of the staff and your leadership, Siobhan. All right, so now, today we have done something different. We've put hard copies of the presentation at each place. We could send them out earlier, but we didn't want to inundate you with things. This is something that was brought up at the United meeting, and they thought it was a good idea to have it. So would you like us to continue to give it to you the day of the meeting or the day before the meeting?
Probably, yes. I'll say yes.
The day before?
Yeah, the day before would be nice.
Okay, so Siobhan, we'll make sure that that's done. So, thank you. In any case, I don't want us to spend a tremendous amount of time going over the completed service orders. We're up to that slide now. Because this is something that we went over last month. So rather than take you through all of them, I will touch on the high points. And the high points were how many service orders were completed. And we're working very well on that. And also the completion within 20 days. And you could see, if you go through the report, there are certain areas, I almost couldn't understand what, okay, here we are. With the completion within 30 days, within 20 days, is working very well. And there's some areas that it doesn't work as well in. Appliances is on this list, but we don't handle appliances. That is a United function. But, we weren't going to stand there and separate if they were third items or United items. But you could see the areas where we could really get to it, and it's our work. For example, landscaping, we get out there and we do it quickly. So I was funny when, I'm up to the next slide. It was funny when I was looking at this, I saw that DMG, and I'm going, what is that? And I couldn't figure it out. But that's damage restoration, which Annie is very familiar with. And that has to do with if there's a leak in your unit or something happens within your unit, and we have to go in and work with you and work with whoever caused the damage to restore it. And that does take a little bit more time, as does paving takes more time, because it isn't like, we just run out with a little paving kit and get it done. So go to the next slide. Is the work order satisfaction survey is really good. 24% response rate is excellent, because having worked with surveys so much in my life, sometimes you have a much lower response rate. And we're going to keep working to keep that up there. What I would really like to see, and I haven't gone over it with Siobhan yet, is, we contact everyone who wants to be contacted, but we certainly contact people who have ever marked as a 1 or a 2. And I would like us to see, and that's more where I would be going, if there is a consistency in the 1s or the 2s, or are they just one-offs, which could also happen. So to see if there's any pattern with them, because we only learn from the things that we don't do perfectly we become better and better in our operations. So I think that that's going to be something that we want to add to next month, rather than going through how many we did, et cetera. But the biggest thing is we have improved in all categories. I'm probably driving you crazy because I'm up to number 6. And I think that that's really, really important. I know that that's very important. And I don't know, I remember when I was on the board, on the third board, I would be inundated with emails and problems from the residents. And I don't hear that from you, Robert, and the rest of the group. So I would think you couldn't go through a weekend without getting 20 emails. I mean, it was like you wanted to be hiding. And I don't know I don't believe that is happening anymore, because if it was, we would certainly have heard about it. And I know Siobhan would have heard about it. So we are doing something right. So thank you very much, Siobhan and the team. So I'm going to quickly go through this because I don't want to take a lot of your time. And I'm just going to go up to how many calls we get from residents, which is on slide 9. And we get a lot of calls. And I asked Siobhan, are these the calls that have to do with gate entrance? Because I used to think that they were mixed in there, and they're not. So you have to say to yourself, why are we still getting so many calls? And is it because people are really getting out and being more active and using their houses more, or they're seeing more things? So it's something that we really have to look at. In the past, we used to be getting more calls. This is in the past, because people didn't get back to you from the first call. But that is not the situation anymore. So I would still love to know why there are so many calls. I mean, because they're not only their calls, they're walk-ins. It's a pretty busy area. The thing that we always have to remember, and I remember we used to talk about this to the management team, is the people who work in resident services have to be a rare breed. You know, when I would have hotels, we would have people who worked at PBX. Well, that was a pleasant job, you know, hello, whatever the hotel. Here, people are calling and they're already not happy. They're not happy because something has happened. They're not happy because they can't figure something out. So it is a very, very tough job to fill, and it is improving a lot down there, but it is tough. It's a tough one. So they have to have extra patience and a different style as to how they want to have to deal with somebody who is having a flood or something that they don't know how to deal with. My next thing, of course, this leads me, or we have a segue, into one of the most important areas in an organization that delivers service, and that is our Human Resources Department. And our Human Resources Department is expanding their recruiting methods. And we're doing, you have to forgive me, Robert must have made me excited yesterday. My voice got hoarse, you know, and it hasn't gotten better yet. We're doing new things for recruiting to try to fill the positions. We have increased part-time employment opportunities for the residents. And they are listed at the village website. And we're trying different things that people could do on a part-time basis, and not only as a gate ambassador. And you know, we don't expect them to be gardeners, but you know, there are certain projects that we work on, so we are constantly expanding the list. Another thing that we're going to start doing, and all of the board members are invited, is we're going to actually have a physical, in-person employee recognition awards next Wednesday, correct me if I'm wrong, on May 25th at Clubhouse 7 at 9 a.m. See how I was very prepared today. The other thing that we are doing with human resources, which basically goes back to resident services, is we're doing sensitivity training with all of our employees. And I wish, but it's cost quite a bit of money, but I asked Siobhan, is there any way that the directors who are interested could participate in it? Because I would love to see what it is. I would love to see what it does. So I know that Siobhan and Carrie were working on it. I think at least one member from a board should go, like maybe somebody like Carrie and Annie, who's in communications, and then come and translate it for the board. I think it would be, and not just leave the load on Carrie to explain it to us. So I think it would be a great thing. I know the people in VMS are very interested in it. And the last thing is you know that we constantly work on our KPIs. In the industry that I was in, we used to call them KRIs, so I always go back and forth. And our big KPI was Manor Alterations. We have discovered quite a number of things in that area that need to be improved. I know that isn't a surprise to any of the board members, you know, like, what is she talking about? But I know that Carlos is working on it. It's like he's like a detective at a murder scene. And he's doing so much investigation and things that he's coming up with that I think it's marvelous. We found some things that could be corrected immediately. And Siobhan tells me to please stop talking about it. But we're really looking for improvements in that area. So the last thing that I have is something I promised at our last meeting, and that is thank you to the new trash program. We were brought, I'm not trying to sell a brand, so I'm going to go like this. But we were advised that if you don't want to go down to your trash bin with a container of stuff and pour it in or whatever, and you find that really awful, that they do have very inexpensive, also 10 cents a bag, these combustible trash bags. So they're the right bags to use. It's just not any bag that I painted green. And the good part is here, I feel like I'm working at Costco. The nice thing about this is you have some broccoli or whatever, you can put it in the bag and you could stick it in the refrigerator and then go down once and throw it in. So you don't have an open container on your sink, because who would want to have that? Then you're going to have ants and flies near your sink. And the other thing, which I constantly carry on about, and Robert hears me, is some of those containers, they get a little messy. So you don't want to be standing over it. So if you have this, you open the lid, throw it in, and you're being part of the program and helping the environment. So I think I'm very, very excited. 10 cents really can't hurt you. And we're trying to come up with ways that we might do more to help the community get these bags or whatever. We were talking about it yesterday. So that is my presentation for today. Thank you very much for having me. And I always enjoy working with this board. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't go anywhere quite yet. You may have
they
some,
might
you
have
may have a
questions.
few questions. All right, I see Director Lewis has a question.
Yes, one on page 9 where you have resident services performance. You have telephone stats, and do you have the same for email?
Siobhan will answer.
That question has been asked. We'll provide that information next time. It is available. I just didn't have it for this presentation.
Okay, great. And the other comment about the bags, if you don't take the whole bag and throw it away within 3 days, you'll have a leak because they dissolve that fast with moisture.
Well, see, more help. So what if you put it in your freezer?
I've never tried putting
Well,
garbage in my freezer. Okay, just
We
never.
were talking about all sorts of things, because it's like, who wants to walk downstairs with one banana? Well, in the 3-story buildings, it's different. Who wants, but the thing is so I know that now. I won't just be sticking lettuce or radishes in there.
Right. So, well, you just can't leave them for a week. But you can get a small compost trash can with a cover. They're usually with a plastic liner, and if you put that in, if it does leak, it doesn't go all over the place.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Director Bada?
Thank you. Just to continue on the trash thing, there are tons of different sizes available on Amazon.com, and they're quite affordable. Sometimes they come down to about 7 cents a bag. But I don't think the bags will last in my house for more than 2 days because we have 3 of us. But besides that, I want you to go on page 5, where you said the survey it's giving you a 24% response. My feeling is that the people who do not take the survey, they may be unhappy about something, because if they are happy, they would respond and give you some response which would increase your percentage. So I think you may want to strive to get people to take the survey somehow.
And that's
that will give you
a good
better
point.
percentage.
If you take the survey, you could be in a drawing and get a special audience with the third board. I mean, some kind of reward. No, but the thing is we found, and again, marketing and this kind of stuff was my background. We found that the people who are unhappy are the first ones who want to fill out a survey, the first ones who want to write on their check in a restaurant, the food wasn't good and the service was worse. So people usually go that way, but I think your point is really good, and we'll work on that with Siobhan and the staff, our communication staff, Annie also. So we'll see if we can
Because
work on it.
24% is pretty low response, so you want to strive to get that percentage higher.
We'll work on it.
Yeah, that's
Good
my
point.
That's my point.
Is there anything else?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all very much. Wait, are you?
Director Laws? Because then I have a question at the end.
Oh,
So go ahead, Director Laws.
Yeah, back to page 5. The survey sent 7,000, so that was much less than the total number of service orders, so are surveys not sent for every service order?
They're sent for every service order. The phone calls may not often always generate a service order. That's the big distinction there. Sometimes they're informational calls, they're just scheduling something and so forth. So there's not a one-to-one correlation between telephone calls and service orders.
Sorry, I was referring to the survey sent, not telephone calls. So there were, according to page 2, there were 17,000 plus service orders completed. On page 5, it mentions only 7,000 plus surveys sent. So I was just wondering, are we not sending surveys for every service order completed?
Oh, excuse me. Thank you for your clarification. The survey started mid-February, so perhaps we missed some that way. But otherwise, let me figure out why there is that discrepancy, and I'll
Okay,
report
thanks.
back. Thanks.
But there would also have to be a consideration of people who we don't have their email addresses. And, so because we send the surveys electronically. So if we don't have their information, then we wouldn't be able to generate a survey. And then to go along with what Kush is saying, is there a way that if we weren't able to get the survey to somebody, that we are able to pop it in the mail? I think United used to have a program where they would leave a card when they left. So I know, and we appreciate all of your questions and comments, because we're not trying to reinvent something. We're just trying to make something better with your help. So if there are different things that we could do, we'll do it, and we'll let you know at our next meeting. So thank you.
Anybody else? I do have a question, and it relates to page 2, and maybe you said it and I missed it, but you say the fourth bullet point down, exceeded completion targets in all but one area. What was the one area that we did not exceed completion targets?
I would say, and of course Siobhan could answer, but I think it's damage restoration. But Siobhan?
Yes, that's correct. Damage restoration, where you have inspections and things that have to be scheduled that exceed.
Okay, makes sense. I was just wondering.
Yeah, and
Since it
that's
said
on,
that.
my page numbers seem to have disappeared.
That's on
But
page 4.
that's on page 4.
Page 4, it's on.
Right.
Director Laws, you have another question?
Well, I just read that differently. So I read the fourth bullet as they exceeded the completion targets, which seems to be 20 days in all but one area. And I thought that the one area that actually had everything in less than 20 days was janitorial. So that's the way I read those bullets. So I'm not sure which is correct.
It's actually the way President Muchnick read it.
Okay.
That's the correct way. We compare the target column with the actual completion date, and there's only one that does not meet
Okay.
the target.
Thank you.
And janitorial is managed so well that, because it's all service, that they really get out there very, very quickly and take care of the resident needs. I know, again, the people who live in the 3-story buildings, and there are a few of us, they do a wonderful job. They used to have a really bad thing here in the community. This was many years ago, that if residents complained about somebody in one building, they would just take them and move them to another building. And that Lynn knows that, because Lynn and I used to be on the Garden Villa Association committee, and we would beat our heads against the wall. And now the people are so friendly, the employees are so friendly, and it's very well run. And we thank you, Siobhan, and also Chris Lagenauer, who is not here anymore, but also Robert. So, all right. So I'm done now. I'm not leaving my bags
Yes,
here.
you're done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
for showing us the bags as well. All righty. We now move up to the open forum for 3 minutes per speaker. At this time, members only may address the Board of Directors regarding items not on the agenda and within the jurisdiction of this Board of Directors. The Board reserves the right to limit the total amount of time allotted for the open forum to 30 minutes. A member may speak only once during the forum. Speakers may not give their time to other people, no audio or video recording by attendees, and no rude or threatening comments. Members can attend the meeting by joining the Zoom link or calling 669-900-6833 or email meeting@vmsinc.org to have your message read during the open forum. So now I'll ask Michaela for our first speaker.
Yes, we have Chris Collins, Manor 3306Q.
Good morning. I don't think I'm going to provide the comic relief that Rose Marie does. But at any rate, I'm here to give you a little update on the Laguna Woods Village um, foundation report and how we help residents that are experiencing temporary financial crisis. A partnership that's lasted and grown over 25 years. Alone we can do little, together we can do so much, and that's attributed to Helen Keller. That message reflects the ongoing partnership between the foundation of Laguna Woods Village and the village's social services staff, and that's gone on for 25 years. And I think that it's really noteworthy to say that the GRF and all of the governance here in the village support the social services, and they are absolutely pivotal in this partnership with what we do. And so, for example, during the pandemic, social services distributed over $30,000 in grocery cards funded by the foundation to ensure that no one went hungry. Help is provided for electricity bills, caregiver services, medication and doctor costs, dental care, taxi vouchers, and with grocery cards. Today, that partnership has expanded to include the purchase of emergency response devices, ambulance contracts, distribution of earthquake kits, and transportation to the local food pantry. How can a resident request such assistance? A resident only has to go to social services, which is located in the rear of the community center on the first floor. There's trained staff there that can be reached at 949-597-4267. They will explain how to qualify for such temporary emergency assistance. Privacy is ensured, and all requests are kept confidential. If the financial assistance is provided, the foundation pays a bill directly, not the resident, and it's paid to the vendors. But the village's social services does much more than just provide a link to the foundation. It's a valuable resource connecting residents with caregiver services, meal delivery programs, mental health programs, dementia care, and adult protective services. Comprehensive biopsychological assessment can be performed by staff, and a team of trained social workers can also help residents with an unexpected crisis. We welcome your input. If you have additional suggestions on how the foundation can help residents, please contact us at 949-268-2246 or the foundation at comline.com. And for more information about the foundation and how we achieve our motto of neighbors helping neighbors, please go to our website at thefoundationoflagunawoodsvillage.org. Thank you.
No, thank you. And I want to say that I attended the 25th anniversary celebration the other week. It was not only a wonderful celebration, but it was fabulous to hear about all that the foundation has accomplished in its 25 years and the support it's provided for residents here in the village. So on behalf of the third board, thank you. Thank the foundation for all the work that it does. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, and I certainly will convey that to the foundation. And it is our pleasure to be able to do this work. And the partnerships are essential. And the reason I brought that up, Rosemary and I have been having this conversation ongoingly, and it's novel that an HOA has trained staff of social workers, and of course that is paid for in our, all of our association dues, but it's so novel and so incredible. So I think, and it's noteworthy. I don't think this is going on anywhere else in this country.
And I think it was very nice that you recognized that team of social workers at the reception.
Yes, they are really hardworking. So thank you.
No, thank you. All right, next.
We have a member email. It's from Warren Greenwood Manor 3327A. They said to the Laguna Woods Third Mutual Board, my name is Warren Greenwood and I am a member of Third. Unfortunately, the CC&R amendment, which would have allowed the board to buy cheaper insurance, was voted down by the membership some months back. Is there anything that prevents the board from giving members another chance to vote on this issue? And will the board give us another chance? The increase in HOA dues has captured the attention of many, and with a well-publicized, crisp description of the vote, I believe the amendment will pass if you submit it to us again. Many of us might be willing to talk to neighbors to encourage them to vote and help reach the required number of votes. Also, can you give a rough estimate of what we might be able to save? Thank you. And that is it.
Okay. In response to that email, we do have a small committee of board members who are looking into the option of another amendment and are considering when and if that might be possible. As for an estimate of what we might save, we have absolutely no idea at this moment in time. It would depend upon what in level of insurance, assuming the amendment would pass, it would depend upon what level of insurance we would drop down to, and then what the current rates of insurance would be. So I'm sorry, but at this moment, we have absolutely no idea what the savings might be. Donna?
Yeah, I just wanted to correct a statement in that comment, and that is that it wasn't that it was voted down. You know, that sort of implies that the votes were negative. In fact, those who voted overwhelmingly favored changing the CCNRs. The problem is not enough people voted. So I think it's important that the community vote and participate, because that was the real problem, not that it was voted down. It just, people didn't vote.
Any other directors want to make a comment about this? Hearing none, we'll move on. All righty. What? We are now up to the CEO report.
Thank you. Honorable President, members of the board, I wanted to start with my heartfelt thoughts and prayers for everyone who was touched by Sunday's tragedy, and to remind you that Village Management Services and its employees are here to assist our community in any way possible. As a reminder, one of the remarkable services we have in the village, as Ms. Collins mentions, is our social services team led by Susan McElnerney. Social services is available to all residents and can be reached confidentially at 949-597-4267. This morning, I also want to highlight the budget calendar for development of the 2023 business plan. On the screen before you, you will see the schedule. As you are aware, the process is already underway. Department workshops took place in March, and the next key meeting in the process is next Monday with the GRF Capital Review, which occurs on May 23rd at 1:30 in the boardroom. And just to reiterate, all budget meetings will take place in the boardroom. Key milestones of the overall process include the business plan review that is televised in August and business plan adoption at the September board meetings. Can you put the next slide up, please? I just want to highlight the specific meetings for 3rd that are shown in orange text on the screen before you. On Thursday, June 2nd at 9:30 is the landscape review. And on Tuesday, May 31st at 9:30 a.m. is the maintenance review. Next slide, please. And then the initial business plan review will take place on Friday, July 15th at 9:30 a.m. The televised business plan review will take place on Friday, August 12th at 9:30 a.m. And business plan adoption is slated for Tuesday, September 20th at the 9:30 a.m. board meeting. And that concludes my presentation this morning. However, I'd like to ask Catherine Lassiter, our services manager, to provide an update on the recall election. Thank you.
Good morning. I am going to provide what to expect for the tabulation of the ballots for the recall. A reminder, the ballots are due on June 2nd by 5 p.m. to the ballot box that is in front of the community center. Tabulations of the ballots will take place on June 3rd at 10 a.m. here in the boardroom. The third board first vice president will call the meeting to order and state the purpose of the meeting. The inspector of elections will determine if the number of ballots received equals a quorum. If a quorum is reached, the inspector will tabulate the number of yes or no votes for the recall. If the majority of the votes are no, the recall fails and the meeting ends. If the majority of the votes are yes, the recall is approved and the meeting continues. If the recall is approved, the inspector of elections will then tally the number of votes for each candidate. The candidate with the most votes will fill the vacancy of the 15-month term, and the candidate that comes in second will fill the vacancy of the 3-month term. The winning candidates will be immediately seated on the board as directors, and then the meeting will be adjourned. The ballot tabulation by the inspector will take approximately 3 to 5 hours. There will be a limited amount of space in the boardroom for viewing the ballot count, as the equipment that tallies the vote takes up a large section of the room. However, the process can be viewed live on Zoom. Do you have any questions?
Director Laws.
You said the meeting will be adjourned if the recall is successful and 2 new directors are seated. Would we vote on new officers at that time?
You would do that at your next open meeting, or you would call a special meeting to do that. It's a separate, it's not together. It's not at the same time. This is just for the count.
Okay.
Director
Thank you.
Bada.
Yes, Catherine, is it possible to know how many ballots have been received so far?
I don't have that number yet from the inspector.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Director Engel.
Is it possible to send emails including that list that you just went through, that whole schedule?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding.
Could we get a copy of that schedule sent to us in email?
Sure, yeah, not a problem.
Hearing no other questions, thank you very much. I just want to make a comment that the members who are listening today may not know that when the tragedy at the church took place on a Sunday, Siobhan Foster, our CEO, Carlos Rojas, one of the new administrative directors, as well as Director Nunez, our new Chief of Security, and Eileen Paulin, our Director of Communications, all were here on Sunday in their offices trying to facilitate issues related to the tragedy as it impacted our members and our gates. And in fact, my understanding is that the boardroom was used to interview witnesses.
We were all prepared for that to happen. They switched plans. Everything was very fluid on Sunday, but we were standing by.
Okay, but they were all here in the building, working hard on our behalf to facilitate as much as possible things on our end and make things easier, not only for our residents, but to overall to handle the situation. So I want to say thank you, and I want to just to recognize that that was what took place on a Sunday afternoon. Thank you. All right, we move now to the Director Laws.
Thank you. I just had some questions regarding the CEO report. One of the budget meetings, the landscape budget meeting, is scheduled for Thursday, June 2nd at 9:30 a.m. Currently, Team Up says that is the landscape committee meeting. Are they being combined, or is the landscape committee going to be not happen this time?
Please let me check on that. And I'll
Okay.
get back to you, Director Laws.
Okay, thank you. And just a couple other things. I had a request about 4th of July. Are there any, prior to the pandemic, there was a fireworks show and things like that. Are there any plans?
Yes, Recreation has activities planned. There will not be a fireworks show, but I will provide the update to you with all the details.
Okay, once you have it, thank you. And then just one last thing, if you could look, the October 19th board meeting for last year is not on Granicus. So if we could, so I couldn't find it. Thank you. That was all I had. Thanks.
Director Jarrett?
The landscape budget meeting is scheduled for 1:30 p.m. on that day of Thursday, June the 2nd.
Okay, great, thank you. So yeah, just if Team Up could be updated so that since people look at that, that'd be great.
Okay, moving along. Consent calendar. All matters listed on the consent calendar recommended for action by committees will be enacted by the board by one motion. So can I get a motion to approve the consent calendar? Director Cook moves. Can I get a second? Director Rain-Sosak seconds. Is there any discussion about the consent calendar? Hearing none, I will go ahead then and assume that it is approved by consent unless I hear otherwise. Consent calendar has now been approved. We now move to unfinished business. we go to committee appointments, which is item number 12. What? What, Kush?
It says 12A. We don't have a B.
It says 12A, committee appointments are 12A. It says A. That's yellow pages in your packet. Can I get a motion to approve the committee appointments? Director Cook moves. Can I get a second? Director McCary seconds. Is there any discussion about the committee appointments? Hearing none, I will then go ahead and assume that the committee appointments are approved by consent unless I hear otherwise.
I just want to make one comment.
Sure.
To the person that sent in the email, it now shows the ad hoc committee for the insurance, that the three, yourself
You and
and
Director Laws?
Laws are on that, and we're working towards the insurance situation.
Absolutely, yes. We have an ad hoc insurance committee. What I think Director Cook is trying to say, if I understand correctly, is we have an ad hoc insurance committee that is made up of members from the different boards, and there are a couple of additional advisors that are on that committee, and we are actually looking at suggestions or possibilities of addressing insurance, not just from a third perspective, but from a village perspective and thinking outside the box and looking at various alternatives. Okay, and I'll talk about that when I get to my report specifically on that committee, about what that committee is at least looking at. So thank you, Director Cook. So back to the motion. Hearing no dissension, I will go ahead and assume then that the committee appointments are approved by consent. All right, thank you. Now we move to the new business, the Interboard Anti-Harassment, Anti-Abuse, and Anti-Intimidation Policy and Charter for Joint Hearing Body. I'm going to ask Director Jarrett, Secretary, to please read the resolution. It's long, but it needs to be read so that people at home hear the whole thing, even though we here in the boardroom all have hard copies of it. The members at home don't have that. So Director Jarrett, if you would, please, and I ask you to bear with her as she works through the lengthy resolution.
Well, excuse me, the background is the Board of Directors of the Third Mutual Board of Golden Round Foundation and the United Laguna Woods Mutual recognize the need for a clear and consistent policy to address claims of harassment, abuse, and intimidation by directors to VMS staff, fellow directors, and residents, as well as claims involving harassment, abuse, and intimidation by residents to staff of VMS, directors, and other residents. To address the need for a clear and consistent anti-harassment, anti-abuse, and anti-intimidation policy, the board presidents and VMS board chair collaborated with Jeffrey C. Beaumont to develop the proposed policy and charter for a joint hearing body modeled after the effective Village Traffic Hearing Committee. The proposed policy provides guidance relative to harassing, abusive, and intimidating behavior and issues a mechanism for addressing such behavior by the Anti-Harassment, Anti-Abuse, and Anti-Intimidation Joint Hearing Body Committee. On May 3rd, 2022 and May 10, 2022, respectively, GRF and United introduced the proposed policy and charter and postponed the resolution to the next available board meeting, no less than 28 days from the postponement to comply with Civil Code 4360. The proposed policy is being considered by the Board of Directors of Third, GRF, and United in the exercise of their respective duties to maintain, protect, and enhance the value and desirability of Laguna Woods Village and interests of all its members. Should the Board of Directors approve the proposed anti-harassment, anti-abuse, and anti-intimidation policy, the board will need to suspend and cancel the existing harassment policy. Those are resolutions. Ours is thirds is 03, 20, and 27, approved on April 21, 2020. This policy has been adopted by the Board of Directors of GRF United and Third, as I said, in their respective duties to maintain, protect, and enhance the value and desirability of the village and the interests of all its members. The definitions in this resolution, number one is community, which includes Laguna Woods Village, including but not limited to the community center, gatehouses, clubhouses, and amenities. Number two, resident, an approved document of a residence in Laguna Woods Village. Number three, staff, employees of Village Management Services, VMS, authorized to act on behalf of United, Third, and GRF. Number four, director, a member of the Board of Directors of either United, Third, or GRF. Number five, harassment. See details under conditions. So I'll read those. Number six, abuse. See details under conditions. Intimidation. See details. The next one is the governing documents. All of the following collectively: the articles of incorporation, the bylaws, the CC&Rs, the rules and regulations, and resolutions or policies adopted by the Board of Directors of United, GRF, and Third, all as may be lawfully amended or modified from time to time. Anti-Harassment, Anti-Abuse, and Anti-Intimidation Joint Hearing Body Committee is a hearing body formed via charter by the Board of Directors of United, GRF, and Third to address claims of harassment, abuse, and intimidation by directors toward staff of EMS, fellow directors, and residents, as well as the claims involving harassment, abuse, and intimidation by residents towards staff of EMS, directors, and other residents. The next is, and last is, the member. Any person who is an owner of a unit in United's development or Third's development who has been approved for membership in United or Third in accordance with the governing documents. The conditions for harassment, abuse, and intimidation are this. The federal law, under law, harassment is defined to mean a serious act or a course of conduct directed at a specific person that causes substantial emotional distress in such person and serves no legitimate purpose. The California law it defines harassment as unlawful violence, a credible threat of violence, or a knowing and willing course of conduct directed at a specific person that seriously alarms, annoys, or harasses that person and that serves no legitimate purpose. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, is the final rule. Recent federal regulations and guidelines enacted by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, that is HUD, impose certain obligations on GRF, United, and Third with regard to the investigation and treatment of reported harassment. The new guidelines, adopted in August 2016, were enacted in an effort to further define and address housing discrimination in the form of harassment. In that regard, HUD's new guidelines now deem any form of harassment in housing or within housing developments a form of illegal discrimination. Based on HUD's guidelines, homeowners associations, including GRF, United, and Third, are considered housing providers, and as such are required to evaluate alleged harassment to investigate whether a resident is being subjected to harassment to the extent that it may amount to illegal housing discrimination. Pursuant to the guidelines, GRF, United, and Third are required to investigate all reported claims of potential harassment of residents and, as appropriate, take all action permitted under the governing documents to address such harassing behavior. This policy interprets and defines harassment in the community to include, without limitations, physical intimidation, threatening bodily harm or to harm one's property, shouting, stalking, such as following someone around to intimidate or make a point, disrupting organized activities in progress, entering the second floor of the community center without escort or pass, interfering, instructing, or otherwise disrupting the work of vendors or staff, unreasonable, hostile, and excessive telephone calls and or emails to a resident, staff, or vendor, disparaging someone, humiliating someone, and other behavior which the ordinary person would find unreasonable and or threatening. Below are various definitions and descriptions of abuse under both federal and California law. Under federal law, abuse is defined to mean the knowing infliction of physical or psychological harm, or the knowing deprivation of goods or services that are necessary to meet essential needs or to avoid physical or psychological harm. The California law is such. Under California law, abuse includes, but is not limited to, intentionally or recklessly causing or attempting to cause bodily injury, sexual assault, and placing a person in reasonable apprehension of imminent serious bodily injury to that person or to another. Abuse is not limited to the actual infliction of physical injury or assault, according to Family Code 6203. For purposes of this policy, abuse also includes conduct that creates a hostile work environment as defined under California law. Below are various definitions and descriptions of intimidation under both federal and California law. Under federal law, intimidation is defined to mean a serious act or coercive conduct directed at a specific person that, one, causes fear or apprehension in such person, and two, serves no legitimate purposes. California law, the definition of intimidation was noted to make timid or fearful, to inspire or affect with fear, to make fearful, to frighten, to deter as by threats. The next part is harassment, abuse, and intimidation complaints and investigation. Harassment, abuse, and intimidation is strictly prohibited in the community. A complaint involving harassment, abuse, and intimidation may be registered by calling the Security Department at 949-580-1400 or the Compliance Division at 949-268-CALL, C-A-L-L, or by emailing compliance@vmsinc.org. Staff will inform the reporting party to call the Security Department for documentation of the reported harassment, abuse, or intimidation. Staff may also inform the reporting parties to call the Orange County Sheriff's Department if and when the behavior occurs. Staff will inform the committee of the receipt of such complaint or complaints and will forward the details of the complaint to the committee for evaluation and investigation. The committee will thereafter conduct an investigation, and if the complaint is confirmed, shall take such enforcement action as authorized below. A complaint involving harassment, abuse, and intimidation by one resident against another may be registered by calling the Security Department at 949-580-1400 or the Compliance Division at 949-268-CALL or by emailing compliance@vmsinc.org. The Security Department may inform the reporting party to call the Orange County Sheriff Department and if and when the behavior occurs. The Security Department will investigate the complaint and report its findings to the committee. The committee will thereafter conduct an investigation, and if the complaint is confirmed, shall take such enforcement action as authorized below. Investigating alleged harassment, abuse, and intimidation to determine whether or not harassment, abuse, or intimidation is taking place, the committee evaluates the nature of the unwelcome conduct, the context in which the incidents occur, the severity, scope, frequency, duration, and location of the conduct, and the relationships of the people involved. The committee may take appropriate enforcement action based upon its findings as outlined below. The committee shall maintain strict confidentiality of those that report complaints and strict confidentiality of information obtained relative to same. Notwithstanding the foregoing, VMS investigates incidents of harassment from an employer standpoint and by necessary implication, there will be an overlap when an employee is harassed by a director. For example, VMS will investigate the harassment to determine what action must be taken to protect the employee, while the committee will also investigate and determine what action to take against the director. Accordingly, VMS and the committee must be able to share information, and the sharing of such information is therefore expressly authorized for this purpose. Enforcement. The committee is authorized to take disciplinary action against directors involving investigated and confirmed claims of harassment, abuse, and intimidation by directors toward staff of VMS, fellow directors, and residents. The committee is also authorized to take disciplinary action against residents involving investigated and confirmed claims involving harassment, abuse, and intimidation by residents toward staff of VMS, directors, and other residents. Discipline shall be imposed after a duly noticed disciplinary hearing in accordance with the requirements of Civil Code Section 5855 and pursuant to rules, regulations, and fine and enforcement policies duly adopted by the boards of GRF, United, and Third. If a director or resident is found to have engaged in acts constituting harassment, abuse, and intimidation, the committee has the authority to impose monetary fines and suspend member or members' privileges pursuant to rules, regulations, and fine and enforcement policy duly adopted by the boards of GRF, United, and Third. Notwithstanding the foregoing, and regardless of whether disciplinary action is taken, any member to be found to have violated this policy may be removed as an officer of their board, if serving as such, or from any committee they serve by their respective board, i.e. GRF, United, and Third. Decisions by the committee to impose disciplinary action against an offending member shall be subject to a right of appeal to his or her respective corporation's board. Oh my gosh.
I tell you what, the next section just deals with the establishment of the committee.
Right.
Rather than ask Lynn to read all of that, basically the committee, Third Mutual has the right to establish committees. The purpose of the committee is to serve as a hearing body. The committee members, the key there is that the committee will be comprised of 2 directors from the board of directors of each of the boards, GRF, United, and Third, totaling 6 members. The term shall be concurrent with each member's term of their respective board of directors. And what will happen will be, if an individual from Third, for instance, is charged with some kind of offense, harassment, abuse, or intimidation, then the 2 members from Third who are on the hearing committee will not participate in the hearing because they're going to be board members, and they would be the ones, if there's an appeal, would be the ones to hear the appeal as part of the whole board. So the other 4 members of the committee would be the ones to hear the charges and to do the investigation. So that's the essence of the committee.
I have to read the resolution, this page. It's the actual resolution.
The actual short resolution, yeah.
It's short.
Go ahead and read that. We should
The
have just
new
read that, not the
resolution will
whole
be
thing. Go ahead.
anti-harassment, anti-abuse, and anti-intimidation policy and charter of the Joint Hearing Body Committee. Whereas the Board of Directors of the Third Laguna Hills Mutual, Golden Round Foundation, and United Laguna Woods Mutual require a clear and consistent policy to address claims of harassment, abuse, and intimidation by directors to staff of village management services, fellow directors and residents, as well as claims involving harassment, abuse, and intimidation by residents to staff of VMS directors and other residents. And whereas this anti-harassment, anti-abuse, and anti-intimidation policy is intended to provide guidance relative to such behavior and issue a mechanism for addressing same by the Anti-Harassment, Anti-Abuse, and Anti-Intimidation Joint Hearing Body Committee, And whereas this policy is being adopted by the Board of Directors, 3rd, GRF, and United in the exercise of the respective duties to maintain, protect, and enhance the value and desirability of Laguna Woods Village in the interests of all its members. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby introduces the anti-harassment, anti-abuse, and anti-intimidation policy and charter of the Joint Hearing Body Committee as attached to the official minutes of this meeting. And resolve further that Resolution 32027, adopted April 21 of 2020, is hereby superseded and canceled. And resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out the purpose of this resolution.
Okay, this goes on 28-day notice, but we're going to ask that a motion be made and accepted to discuss this resolution so that we can get input from board members and community members related to specific elements of this issue. So can I get a motion to move? I see Director Rain-Sosak moves. Can I get a second? I see Director McCary seconds. So now we'll open up the discussion to the directors for input as to anything they want to adjust. I see Director McCary, then I'll take Director Lewis.
Thank you, President Munchnick. I am speaking for this motion, and it saddens me to be in a place where we as volunteers serve our community and staff have to have such a mandate. I moved here as a retired person, and I expect to be treated as an individual. I expect not to be harassed. I expect not to be marginalized in any way. And to serve as a volunteer on this board, that we have to have documents like this is really sad. But it's also good to see that we are attempting to put in place some rules and some regulations so that we can feel safe to do our job, but not only do our job, but walk in this community. There's so much hatred and so much harassment. We just see it all over the place. And I'm also saddened that this policy won't stop it, but I'm also glad that we have some rules and regulations in place that can also protect us and make us feel safe as we do our volunteer work, but also as we walk around in our community. I'm saddened by it, but I'm also glad that we are putting some stuff in place so that we can do our job and we can be protected. And people that harass have got to know that they cannot do this and get away with it. So I'm speaking for the motion, and those are my comments.
Director Lewis.
I'm glad that we are putting it together for all the different corporations. But what I see missing from this is the VMS board, as well as VMS as a corporation. I would hope that we could put it all together in one. So in case this seems to be a one-way street where it's residents going towards, let's say, VMS or another director or another resident, but it can happen in the other direction. And I would like to hopefully see everything under one umbrella.
I'd like to give the floor to our CEO to address why that's not possible.
Okay.
VMS implemented a comprehensive anti-harassment policy approximately 2 years ago, and it's worked very well in terms of whether it's an employee accusing someone else of harassment or an employee accused of harassment. And since the process has worked very well, this procedure before you today was drafted to work in concert with that rather than as a single element.
The other reason,
And I'll be happy to, share. I have a flow chart that I can share with the board in closed session if you'd like to see that.
I think the other reason is that they're employees of VMS, and we really don't have direct authority over those employees. But VMS does. So VMS can sanction their employees.
Yeah,
And that's the reason for the separation.
So where does the VMS board fall? Is that a gray area or?
The VMS board helped develop this procedure along with the other board presidents. So the board itself would fall under the proposed policy before you today.
Okay, I just don't see it here anywhere that they're inclusive in this.
Yeah, I think the intent is that the VMS board itself would be under this policy. Rosemarie? I have Mark Laws, and I'll go to you.
Excuse me, I didn't want to yell from the audience because I know that that's not right. So the VMS board was included in the development. The VMS board is included in the conduct part. The only thing the VMS board is not included in is we're not part of the hearing boards because that is up to the mutuals. And we have, and the real reason, and I've heard it, that we really felt, there's so many reasons why we want to put this together, but some of you know that we've had some challenges with a board member, not on this board, and it impacts everybody. It impacts all of you on third, it impacts all of our staff, and if the board that the person is on refuses to take action, that is terrible. So that's why, another reason why we put this together, because you have to protect the employees along with us, you have to protect the residents, so that is why we wanted the involvement of all of the boards. Correct, Siobhan? Yeah, so thank you.
That's
Diane?
correct. And we-
Director Lewis, you want to follow up?
Well, what I was asking is, since, would the VMS board fall under the VMS rules and regulations and enforcement, or are they going to fall under this? But they're not listed here.
Right, they need to be,
We can clarify.
listed.
Yeah, we'll clarify that.
I agree, they need to be listed.
Yeah.
All right, Director Laws?
Excuse me, and that's a great point, and we have a meeting on Thursday, I believe, at 12:30 or something like that, so we'll make sure that that's clear. Okay, thank you very much.
Just a second. Yeah, just to follow up what Rosemarie just said, we have a meeting on Thursday, and I shared with all the board members the comments from both GRF and United that had taken place when they did their 28-day review at their weekly meetings last week and the week before, so that you had their comments. But they're all the comments that they made, plus whatever comments are made here today, will be then taken back on Thursday to that small committee to discuss inclusion. Exactly what you asked would be one of those items. Then you want to address that specific issue?
Yeah, speaking to that, the VMS board is consists. We have 3 representatives on the VMS board. That's just a point I wanted to make.
Yeah. All right. Director Laws, you were next, and Director Bada.
All right. I just have plenty of questions and comments, but I'll do a few and then give other directors time to talk, and then you can come back to me. This doesn't talk about guests, so if we have a guest in who does the harassment per se, how will that be handled? A contractor, for instance, something like that?
Those would all, in my opinion, those would all be the responsibility of the owner who invited the guest or invited the contractor in. You're responsible. If you invite somebody into the community, it is you, the person who did the inviting, who's responsible.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I just think it should be worded in here maybe as a definition or something that's just included. President Muchik, you mentioned something about the committee members, and if something was directed, if at a specific board member, the committee members of that board wouldn't participate. I didn't see that in here in this document that we read, so just
It just enumerates that there are 6 members. Director Laws is correct. It
All right,
doesn't
well, then we
state
need
that.
to,
So I have it as-
the intent was,
I have a note to clarify.
right, the intent was to keep it neutral and independent so that when the appeal took place, it would go back to the full board. And that was the intent of what's supposed to be in here. So thank you for pointing out that it's not, it does need to be added back in.
All right, okay. And so it sounds like then the committee would, let's say if somebody, if I had a claim of harassment against me, 2 members from United, 2 members from GRF would investigate and pass judgment. And what if there's a tie? What if 2 say yes, 2 say no? Does a tie base go to the innocent? So just something to think about as you're putting this in. And one more before I then
Yield the floor.
Yield the floor is maybe just a consideration is have this committee made up of members versus instead of board members. Maybe members of our residents could make up this committee, like a grand jury type of situation or something like that.
All right, Director Bada?
Thank you. That was one of my comments to Director Laws. And Madam McCary, I concur with what you said. I'm saddened by the situation. But what I want to say is the title of this is Anti-Harassment, Anti-Abuse, Anti-Intimidation. What about discrimination? Do we have a separate policy for that?
Yes,
We have a separate policy for discrimination?
yes.
For the boards or in general for VMS?
For generally each mutual, I can speak to third today, yes.
Okay. All right. That's what I wanted to know, that we should either add it or merge it or something like that. Discrimination is a big thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Director Cook?
Again, going back to the even number of people, would there be a possibility of having a floating member of the VMS board where one from each United, Third, and GRF, that they rotated, and so say it was against a third member, of course, the third representative to that VMS board wouldn't be on it, but one of the other two, just so it's rotated, so you get an odd number instead of an even number. So at one hearing, it would be United as opposed to GRF, and just fluctuate between the two.
That's a great suggestion. We'll certainly put it under consideration.
Ralph? I want to give everybody a chance to speak once, and then I'll come back around a second time. Ralph?
A tie is generally not considered as a pass.
Okay. I'll go back to Director Lewis, then I'll come back to Director Laws.
What Director Laws had brought up about contractors, what if a neighbor, you're having work, your next door neighbor abuses your contractor? Where does that fall under this? And I know we have guidelines for penalties, but I think they should be merged on a list with this or an amendment to this, so you don't have to go into 3 other areas to find out what kind of penalties are going to happen for whatever, or what the guidelines would be. That's all.
You getting this down, Siobhan?
Yes.
Okay. If it's a neighbor and against a contractor,
Yeah, and a neighbor abuses a contractor for whatever reason. I don't know.
then if the charge of harassment was filed against the neighbor, then the neighbor would be brought in for a harassment charge.
Okay.
So the resident.
The resident, which resident are you referring to?
The resident whose contractor is being abused would file against that
Would
neighbor.
file it, and the contractor would serve as a witness, apparently, for the resident who files against the neighbor. All right, back to Director Laws.
Thank you. This talks about a process where the committee will thereafter conduct an investigation. I would like to see more details about how that would be done. Maybe this committee going to roam around and interview people?
If I can interject, there's prior reference indicating that the security or compliance divisions will initiate an investigation, provide those results to the committee, and then if the committee needs anything further, the committee can, I would think, would direct staff to provide whatever is needed.
Okay.
That's at least how I.
And that's not really how it works. So I read you the statement. The committee will thereafter conduct an investigation. That is the very bottom of page 5 of 12 and the top of page 6 of 12. So, yeah, just wanted to kind of understand that. If a resident, a non-owner resident, does the harassment and is found to be guilty, for lack of a better way of saying it, do we have remedy against that resident, or is it against the member who, the landlord essentially?
It's against the member.
the landlord, okay? So that's, I mean, I understand that that's really all we have, but I've struggled with that a little bit.
Agreed, it's a struggle, but
Yeah.
it's the same way right now. If a tenant, a renter, violates a rule or regulation, the owner of the manor is the one who's brought in. Because the relationship between the tenant and the landlord is separate from the relationship that we have with the member, the owner.
Understood. Okay, thank you. And then I'd also like more information about what information is provided to the person who's being claimed against, and when. I would hate to be surprised that I was guilty of something that I had no idea I even did. So thank you. Okay, that's it for the moment.
I'll just share with you, we have had, I think you sat in on the panel hearing as part of an executive hearing. We had a case of harassment where there was an investigation done, a report provided. We then brought the person in who was being charged with harassment. We had a discussion with that person. That person was given an opportunity to present their perspective or their side of it. And then the panel made a decision based upon the information that it had, both from the complainant, from the investigation, and from the person accused. That's the way that took place. I think you were part of it.
I do recall that. I would wonder if perhaps the committee that's hearing it should also be allowed to talk to the person who's filing the complaint versus only receiving that information from staff.
Okay. Michaela.
We do have a speaker request.
Okay, if we're done with board issues, then we'll go to the speaker. All right, at this point, I guess we can go to the speaker.
Jules Zalon, Manor 3124A.
Incidentally, before we turn on the clock, there is an answer to a question that had been raised earlier concerning what it was that, why it was that second CC&R amendment didn't go through. And Donna is absolutely right. It would have passed overwhelmingly, but for the fact that there weren't enough votes in. But the reason that there weren't enough votes
Mr.
in...
Zalon, please, listen, you have 3 minutes. Please stick to your topic at the moment.
Is that the board did not
Mr.
extend
Zalon.
the... Okay, I really... I didn't come with any notes for the first time. But I have to tell you that of all the bad decisions that I have seen in the past 6 years that I've been here, this proposes to be absolutely the worst. It is Orwellian. It's absolutely frightening. And to answer Mark's question, which really concerns the procedures by which people are protected, the fact is that there are no due process provisions in this entire thing. So harassment is essentially anything that the board decides harassment is. And I thank Annie for her introductory remarks because she really put it exactly there. There have been all sorts of terrible things that have been going on and terrible comments that have been exchanged in the community for the past several months. And this has to stop. And this harassment policy is going to do it. And I can't imagine who she could possibly be thinking of. But the point is that that's just the point. If someone wants to look at all of these supposedly terrible things that have been said to the members in this community, I urge them to look at all the bulletins, the recall bulletins that I put out, and I made a lot of comments and I made a lot of accusations. And if those are the things that would determine what harassment is, then you're looking at the first defendant in the argument. But now let me address what's really going on, and that is, what is harassment? Harassment is considered sufficiently pervasive that courts have held that it cannot be occasional, isolated, sporadic. It has to be threatening. It has to threaten to cause bodily harm or intrude on someone's ability to actually do work. But that's not what this policy says. This policy says, for example, that harassment is following someone around to make a point, disrupting activities in progress, excessive telephone calls or emails to staff, disparaging someone, humiliating someone. So if I would say that a lawyer lied to the third board, which is both disparaging and humiliating, would that mean that I am guilty of harassment? Here's the point. One would think that that reading this gigantic set of rules, one would think that we really have a harassment problem in this community, and
Thank you,
we
Mr.
don't.
Zallen. You're out
The
of
vast
time.
majority.
Mr. Zallen, thank you very much. You're out of time. Mr. Zallen, thank you very much. Mr. Zallen, please, you're out of time. Mr. Zallen, your time is up. Thank you. All right, this goes on 28-day notice, and we'll take all of the comments, which are all Director Laws.
Sorry, just remember on the committee members, maybe want to add some alternates as well. I don't know if that was planned, but obviously that would be.
Listen, any other comments you have, if you submit them to me or to Siobhan before Thursday or meeting Thursday, we'll be happy to take up those comments as well as any others that any other board members may have or members of the community may have.
Thank you. Thanks.
If they submit them. So at this point, we will put this on 28-day notice unless there's some objection to that. Director Cook?
I would object because I would like to see the revisions made and put into it before we put it on 28-day notice. All the revisions from United and GRF and from us, so we see the document in totality.
Well, you will see the whole thing in its totality.
But I'd like to do that before we put it on 28-day notice. So I'll be voting against.
Okay, Director Bach?
I agree with that.
Okay.
I was going to say the typical rule is if there are substantive, I can't speak this morning, changes, it would have to trigger a
new
reposting.
28-day notice.
So depending on
once you see the document, if it's substantially changed, we'll put it back on a new 28-day. All right? But you're certainly entitled to your vote. All right. Hearing no other objections, the vote will be 9 in favor, 2 opposed. We've got that? You'll vote no? You'll vote no? 7 in favor, 4 opposed, putting it on 28-day notice. All right. Committee reports. We'll start with the Finance Committee.
Thank you, President Muchnick, and it's my pleasure to bring you the finance report as of March 31st of this year. And if you see the first slide, the first slide is always just an overall assessment revenue, non-assessment revenue, and the total against expenses with no consideration for the areas to which those areas are assigned. And as you can see, our assessment revenue was $10,353,000 with non-assessment revenue of only $448,000 for a total of $10,801,000 as opposed to total expenses of $7,690,000 for a net revenue of $3,111,000. If we move on to slide number 2, that's where we look at the operating income statement. The operating portion of our finances is extremely important. It's what we work on day to day. And as you can see, numbers slightly smaller. Assessment revenue that went to operations is $7,151,000. The non-assessment revenue of $423,000 for a total of $7,574,000. Total expenses, again within the operating portion itself, of $6,500,000 for an operating surplus as of the end of March of $1,074,000. As we move on, here we start looking at slide number 3, full income statement compared to the results to budget. We haven't looked at budget yet, and so now we have to do that. And as you can see, our assessment revenue, which we've already identified, as opposed to budget, was exactly as expected. Actually, there's a $1 variance, but that will be lost, I'm sure. The non-assessment revenue actually was less than budget for a negative of $72,000, with total revenue, if you add them together, of $10,801,000, as we've already mentioned, against a budget of $10,874,000, again for a negative variance of $73,000. However, our expenses were markedly less than budgeted as well, and therefore we do wind up with a surplus in the operating budget as of March 31st. If you go all the way over to the far right, the bottom, $1,844,000 variance, and the actual revenue of $3,111,000. As we move on to slide number 4, I'm really excited to share this slide with you because I've been dutifully doing it every month and never really noticed until one of our board members pointed out to me that for some reason, those favorable variations from budget were always shown in a funny shade of orange that looked very close to red. And someone asked me why. They said, how come when we do well, it's dark orange, and when we don't do as well, it's different? So I'm very excited, thanks to our finance department, to share with you this month's chart where all of those things that were better than budgeted are green, as they should have been all along. And those that are not are red. So thanks to that eagle eye that noticed it, I certainly never had. If we look at the most significant variances from the budget, the biggest one, outside services, and that looks really good in that it was $947,000 better than budget. But unfortunately, a lot of that has to do with the start of projects. Painting, roofing doesn't start until March, and yet we budget these things by the month. We anticipate the expenses monthly as we put our budget together. So that will start to catch up because we didn't begin that work and we therefore were not billed. And tree maintenance, the same thing, began in March. So we do have a favorable variance. It's always nice, but that will start to even out a bit. Insurance, which gets a great deal of attention, was favorable by $383,000. That was due to the property insurance coming in lower than anticipated. It's important that we keep in mind that policy is scheduled to renew June 1st, and there was a letter from President Muchnick last week that spoke of issues that we might have.
I think you need to also understand that that 383 is the same kind of situation. We budget on a monthly basis, and come June 1st, we'll be paying out a substantial amount of money, and that insurance factor will most likely dramatically decrease, if not disappear.
One of the things that is helpful for us on the financial side is that at least now we had moved that date of the insurance premium from the fall to June 1st, so that as we are planning our budget for the upcoming year, we will already know what those insurance premiums are going to be and can appropriately calculate them into the budget.
And as it relates to insurance, just so the board is informed, we'll probably need to call a special closed meeting of the board before June 1st to be able to approve the purchase of the property insurance, which the broker's working on, as you know, right now.
Okay, thank you. But at least for now, it's nice to see it in the green. But please put that slide back up. It just disappeared, and yet our benefits did not. So if we could go back to slide number 4, thank you. Employee compensation and related expenses was also favorable, $317,000. But again, a lot of that has to do with open positions. There's active recruiting going on, all efforts, as you heard in the VMS report. And so that will again begin to drop, but for right now, that money is sitting there. Legal fees were favorable by $99,000, again, because of decreased need for legal services and also judicious use of those services. The only two areas in red fees and charges for service to residents. That was negative by $32,000. And the primary reason for that was because there was less revenue than budgeted for chargeable damages from moisture intrusion. And that had to do with delays in determination hearings. And my understanding is that there is tremendous work being made to catch up with that. I see Director McCary nodding her head yes. And so that was delays in processing those things. And then investment still is showing a negative. That is still an unrealized gain. The funds are now in Treasury funds at 90 basis points. And as the year goes on, we can erase that and get rid of the unrealized gain and start seeing the interest from those Treasury funds coming up. So actually, all in all, that's a very good-looking chart. Only two tiny marks to the left and a whole lot of green, and glad to see it in those colors now. And we can move on to the next slide. Here we show non-investment revenue received by category. And if you look at that, it's very clear, starting really from the bottom in that orange section and moving clockwise, the three largest areas of non-assessment revenue: chargeable services, permit fees, lease processing fee, and not that far behind it, laundry revenue. And those four categories make up the good portion of our non-assessment revenue. We do have resale processing fees accounting for 11% of that. And the rest of it is really very small amounts. But it's always nice to see it in a pie chart like that so we can visually get a sense of where our non-assessment revenue is coming from. As we move on to the next slide, which are expenses, we do the same thing. And we can see that it's very clear. The vast majority of our expenses are employees' compensation and those related to it, 43% of our entire budget, and that's with open positions right now. So you can see how that has such an important effect. Insurance, 24%, and utilities, 15%. Again, all of those other things, outside services, et cetera, are very, very small in comparison to the expenses that we see. But in terms of utilities, I am glad to tell you that one of the utilities that has not been problematic is residential water use, and special thanks to our residents for really starting to watch. But when we get to the report from the Water Conservation Committee, you will hear that good news. But again, that just gives you a very nice visual view of where our expenses are. And as we move on, now we go to the non-operating funds, and we have replacement funds, which are very, very important, our Garden Villa Fund, small but mighty, our disaster fund, the unappropriate expenditures fund, again, that's really our contingency fund. Those are the expenses that are going to come up that we couldn't really anticipate, but we know are going to be there. And as you can see, our funds began January 1st with $28,462,000 on the far right column. And if you look down at the bottom, our current balances are $30,533,000, with each of those areas managing to increase slightly. And if we move on to the next slide, you can see it visually, which is always sometimes easier to do. And you can see that our replacement funds are growing. It's partly the changes we've made, partly due to new fees coming in, fees from resales, et cetera, that happen, that go into that. And that's a very, very important part of budgeting for the board, is to make sure that those replacement funds are growing. The disaster fund is smaller now. You can see on the far right is 2022, and we go back all the way to 2018. And you can see that it shrunk quite a bit in 2021. That was when money was borrowed for the unexpected insurance expenses. Those are being paid back. But in fact, the disaster fund, when it was set up, we did not have earthquake insurance. And so earthquake possibilities were covered under that disaster fund, and we now do have earthquake insurance. And so, yes, it's growing again, but it doesn't have the same need as it did initially. And moving on to the very last one, This is the one we love seeing. It's our resale history, and we love seeing it because it's looking very good. As you look, all we have are January, February, and March of this year. January was incredibly robust compared to the previous Januaries of 2021 and 2020. February had quite a drop. I've been told some of that has to do with the Super Bowl, and we'll allow that because the recovery in March was very, very nice, and we anticipate that that will continue. Our year-to-date sales almost exactly even with last year, and certainly far ahead of what happened in 2020 at the beginning of that pandemic. And our average resale price has grown since 2020. The average resale price was $440,000 plus, now $470,000 plus. There was a drop last year during the pandemic. Yeah.
I'd like to ask if in future financial reports, if you want to keep the average resale price, I don't have any problem with that, but I would like to see the median resale price instead of the average, because
that's
average,
the exact
average resale
middle.
price is oftentimes bumped dramatically by the one or two sales at a $1.6 million, $1.7 million. So it gives, in my opinion, the average price gives a skewed perspective where the median would give a clearer perspective on what's really going on.
Yeah, and again, just to clarify, median price is the exact middle, and so you don't get as affected by as much by those extreme high prices. Yes, Durant.
And possibly also, just for an example, what was the highest sale price of a unit and what was the lowest sale price of a unit? Because then you see the variation along with the median.
Yeah, and we might even be able to do a chart that actually, a graphic, because somehow, at least for me, it's always easier to see it if you've got a visual. And so we would do it, and thank you for both of those suggestions. It's probably also important because the median price, that price smack dab in the middle, might be a little lower than what we're seeing on this chart.
Yeah.
And we are now aware that the insurance companies are looking at our sale prices, and their thoughts about the value of our community might be skewed by some of those extreme high prices on some of the larger sales. So thank you. And with that, that is the finance report for...
Okay, questions? All right, hearing none, we'll move on. The next report is the Architectural Control and Standards Committee. That committee met most recently on the 25th of April. Representing VMS, Bart Mejia discussed how Manor Alterations is attempting to streamline the mutual consent process, which includes updating the website abilities for members to be able to actually track their requests online. They can go online and by Manor number, punch in and see exactly where their request is in the process. The timeline for approval of mutual consents was discussed in detail, and an understanding of where the slowdowns in the process occur. One of the key points where the process slowdown is when Manor Alterations requests missing documents and members are slow to respond. Manor Alterations has discussed how it is trying to speed up this part of the process by sending reminder notices to the members on a regular basis after a certain period of time, kind of jog the memory and hopefully move that process. Two variance requests were approved, 5191 Duenas and 5379C Avenida Sociega. The next meeting is on for the 23rd of May here in the boardroom, and will be in person as well as virtual. All right. Next report is the Communications Committee. Director McCary.
Thank you, President Muchnick. The Third Communications Committee did not actually meet on April 13th. That meeting was canceled. So our next scheduled meeting is for July 13th, 2022 at 1:30 p.m. And it will be in-person meeting in the Willow Room as well as virtual.
Okay, next report is Maintenance and Construction Committee. Director Engdahl.
The last third M&C committee meeting was held on May 2. Mr. Gomez reported that vendor proposals for the state-required inspections of certain load-bearing components of our buildings per SB 3 were due probably the following week and will be provided to the committee at the next committee meeting. A pilot program to upgrade electric facilities at cul-de-sac 317 carports was extensively discussed, pros and cons. Program was put on hold pending a policy decision on charging of automobiles and further consideration of the potential impact on Third's budget. A slide presentation was also provided by Mr. Gomez concerning the 2008 background study leading to the current selection of PVC cool roof for flat roofs in Third. Our advisor Bennick also shared information regarding an alternative spray polyurethane foam, and staff was directed to further consider roofing materials again for presentation in a future meeting. Next M&C meeting is scheduled for Thursday, July 7, 1:30 p.m. in the boardroom and Zoom.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Director Bada on the Parking and Golf Park Subcommittee, please.
Thank you. Please bear with me. I forgot my reading glasses today. So, we have no new information on this at this moment. The last meeting was on March 23rd. The next meeting is on May 25th, coming up next week.
At 1:30 p.m. in the
Yes.
boardroom.
Correct, in the boardroom.
All right, thank you, sir. Next up is the Garden Villa Rec Room Subcommittee, Director Jarrett.
Yeah, we have nothing new to report this month. The next meeting will be May the 26th at 1:30 p.m. in the boardroom, and it's a virtual meeting.
Thank you. Landscape Committee, Director Jarrett.
At the last Landscape Committee meeting, Kurt Wyman, VMS's Landscape Director, presented some slides on KPIs, key performance indicators, which show the amount of work the staff does overall and are important in showing how much work is really being accomplished. 3 tree requests were handled by the committee, and we had a wonderful PowerPoint presentation on trees given by Village Arborist and Staff Support Landscape Manager, Bob Merget. It was not only interesting, but educational as well. When I first saw this PowerPoint at another meeting, I suggested that a video should be created from it, which could be put on YouTube so that all villagers could enjoy it. Warm weather is here, but rain is not. That doesn't stop the weeds from trying to take over. The slopes are more beautiful than ever, albeit for some bare spots. Mr. Wyman has a small crew of staff that plants those bare spots. We have so many acres of slopes, so don't expect them to be 100% perfect. But I think a good job is done by them overall, and actually the best in years. The flowers are beautiful, and it's spring, it's just beautiful. This year's budget for turf replacement and new plantings in Third Mutual has mostly been expended. With water restrictions, the next step would be a mandatory 30% reduction on potable water. This would restrict watering to just twice a week. Mr. Wyman reminded everyone that the landscape budget for weeding is 4 times a year, and in this season, weeds are growing fast, so it's hard to keep up with them. Landscaping is limited to the budget, speaking of which we are having budget meetings currently. Just a reminder, with high inflation, costs are going up. We do not expect to receive additional funding for year 2023, and I'm sure that makes a lot of you as disappointed as I am. In fact, it's probable that our budget will stay flat or we may even have a cut. The next meeting of the Landscape Committee will be June the 2nd at 9:30 a.m. here in the boardroom, with the 2023 Landscape meeting to follow in the afternoon at 1:30, that same day, June the 2nd. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Water Conservation Committee, Director Rain Sosak.
Yes, thank you. The last meeting of the Water Conservation Committee, which is a quarterly meeting, was April 28th. It was a virtual meeting, and the most critical thing that was brought up at that meeting was that El Toro Water District, in accordance with the state of California, has declared a level 2 water shortage. And what that means is we are being requested, and at this point the key word and the operative word is requested, to cut our water usage by 11 to 20%. In Third Mutual, we have the ability to look at residential water use versus landscape water use. We are anxiously awaiting the installation of the new irrigation systems that GRF approved, which is probably going to be staged, much of it budget related, and hopefully we'll find the money to do it sooner rather than later, because the understanding is we might save as much as 20% of landscape water by using that new system. And so that was really important. But for us, as residents, most important to me was the residential water. We're asked to cut by 11 to 20%. We are told there can be no car washing. That's just fine. Third Mutual hasn't permitted that for a very long time. So we were ahead of the game. But what's really important, and I wanted to share with you, is that last year we were quite concerned. July 1st of last year, El Toro Water District raised our water rates, and we were very, very concerned of how that would impact our budget, especially since in 2021, last year, January, April, May, and July, we had more residential water usage in each of those months than the previous 3 years. So it was very concerning. We began a fairly intensive water conservation campaign. And the first month that the water usage dropped, it was kind of like, well, maybe that'll be a mistake, or people are on vacation and we can't really get too excited. However, August, September, October, November, December, January, and February, in other words, every single month for which we have reports since that time, our residential water usage has not only been lower than the previous year, but in almost every case, the lowest in the past 3 years. So special thanks to all our residents for paying attention, for watching closely, for watching their water use, for maybe turning off that water while they're shaving or brushing their teeth, but it is making a difference. Every one of us can. So thank you. And also the other highlight of the meeting, we are very fortunate to have as our advisor to the Water Conservation Committee, Lee Goldstein, who was chair of Earth Day and the Earth Day celebration here in Laguna Woods Village, and he gave a report. It's the first time it's been held since 2019 because of the pandemic, and it was well attended and lots of emphasis on conservation and really good turnout. So our next meeting is scheduled, and I say scheduled because we are only scheduled to meet quarterly. And during this water shortage time, that may have to be a little more fluid, and we might have to meet more frequently. But at the moment, our next meeting is scheduled for July 28th, and that's at 2 p.m. It's scheduled in the Sycamore Room. We're going to look at that because we're starting to get residents coming to those meetings, and we might need a more accessible spot. And that's the report.
Thank you very much. Sounds like good news overall in terms of the water usage and the involvement of our residents. All right, Resident Policy and Compliance Committee, we met most recently on April 26th. Once again, this committee discussed updating the resolution for the distribution of printed materials. Based on the discussion that ensued, the members of the committee appear inclined to include in the policy the use of door hangers. However, the policy was referred back to staff to correct some of the language and bring a clean document back to the committee for the next meeting for consideration. With regards to another item, the committee discussed the existing resale policy, specifically items such as the use of federal tax returns, U.S. federal tax returns only, and whether or not foreign-owned real estate should be included in calculating net worth. The committee referred the issue of how to handle the U.S. federal tax return to the Finance Committee, and then returned the item to this committee for future consideration. The committee also decided to hold in abeyance the net worth requirement and whether or not retirement accounts had to be held in the U.S. Towards the close of the meeting, Mary Cito submitted her letter of resignation as an advisor to the committee. Next meeting of this committee is scheduled for the week of the 24th at 9:30 in the boardroom, and there's a virtual meeting. All right, we now move to the GRF Committee highlights, and we'll start with Director McCary, Community Activities Committee, please.
Thank you, President Munchnick. The CAC Committee did meet on May 12th. It was a hybrid meeting here. And so Brian Gruner gave a report He spoke about staffing and recruitment constraints continue to be a challenge to the Recreation Department's opportunities to expand. So he continues to make progress as he has hired several full-time members and still in need of a full-time PAC coordinator and a part-time recreation leader. He also reported that Garden Center Volunteer Program was instituted, conducted training and scheduled volunteers. They are finalizing some camera installation in both gardens. He reported also in terms of the Equestrian Center that the village community fundraising efforts raised a total of $4,500, and GRF has approved the fundraising program. He also reported that renovation continues in terms of the PAC. The renovation continues in the billiard room, kitchen, and rehearsal room. They are awaiting new flooring in both kitchens and billiard rooms, and some additional work is also being done on the HVAC system. Some members of the table tennis came to the meeting and they spoke and requested that the operating hours be extended for table tennis. The tennis club operating rules were presented, discussed, and they were approved, and they will go to the GRF board. Some of the members from the Garden Center showed up at the meeting to give their input into the Garden Center operating rules that were presented. After much discussion and feedback from members of the Garden Center, the committee voted to table the rules and to consider the input from the members and bring it back to the committee next month. In terms of some of the upcoming events, and Director Laws, you mentioned the fireworks, and years past we have had fireworks here. There's been some concern regarding the horses and the fireworks, and so the committee for the last 2 years decided not to have fireworks because of the effects of the fireworks on the horses. So whether or not the fireworks will return, I don't know, but that's why we're not having them now. Some of the other programs that were mentioned, the Clubhouse Fitness Room on Wednesdays, 4:30 to 5 p.m. There's a contemporary jazz dance class that's going on. The fee is $25 for 5 classes, and for more information, you can see the recreation office. There's Monday movies at the PAC. May 16th, the movie is Coda. June 13th, the Grimsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society is having a meeting. In June 20th, in the Eye of Tammy Faye. July 11th, King Richard. July 18th, Belfast. August 15th, House of Gucci. July 19th, West Side Story. October 17th, Nightmare Alley. And November 21st, Spencer. The doors open at 1:45 p.m. The movies begin at 2 p.m. and the movies are free and no tickets are required. Also coming up on May 21st at noon to 5 p.m., the Village Renaissance Fair starts. And that event will be, for more information on that, you can contact the Recreation Department. You can enjoy Shakespeare, dance, music performances throughout the day on the main stage. You can visit the blacksmith and fortune tellers. You can play games and a delight at night's horses and the Queen's Court. So this again is the Renaissance Fair, and that is Saturday, May 21st at 5 p.m. There is a Memorial Day ceremony with a performance by the All-American Boys Choir, and this event has been very popular every year. It will be held on Monday, May 30th at 1 p.m. at the Performing Arts Center. The admission is free, but you have to have tickets to get in, so the tickets are available at the Performing Arts Center box office on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 9 a.m. to noon, and you're allowed 4 tickets maximum per person. There's also coming up an 8th Annual Art Fair that's going to be Saturday, June 4th, Clubhouse 2, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's open to the public. It's also a free admission. And more information, there are flyers available in the recreation office for more information. And then the last no, it's not the last one. Also, there's a tribute to a classic to Rod Stewart, Forever Rod, and that's going to be on Thursday, June 9th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Clubhouse 1 in the back patio. Tickets for that are $15 at the Clubhouse 1 office. And then finally, the Kids Summer Program has started back. Start Friday, June 10th through July 8th. Noon to 4 p.m. And it's $5 per child, ages 2 and older, free for infants and adults. So, and more information about that, there are flyers available for more information. And also, there is going to be a Father's Day brunch on Sunday, June 19th, Clubhouse 5, 11 a.m. For adults, it's $29. For children, 6 to 10 is $14.50, and for 5 and under, there's no charge. The menu includes scrambled eggs, bacon, pot roast, baked salmon with lemon, broccoli and cheese, stuffed chicken breast, quiche, Lorraine, hash brown potatoes, long grain rice, Greek salad, roasted vegetables. Tickets are on sale Thursday, May 26th at the Clubhouse 5 box office. And the last thing is some members of the aquatics came to the committee with a request that they maintain the maintenance of Pool 1 is scheduled during the month of October through May in the future so that it doesn't interfere with their practice. And so the committee agreed to take those requests into consideration. The next meeting of the CAC will be June 9th at 1:30 p.m. in the boardroom as well as virtual. Thank you.
Thank you for the long list of all the different activities that are available in the next month or so. Next up is the Equestrian Center Ad Hoc Committee, Director Bada.
Thank you, President Mushnick. We have no new information currently, as our last meeting was on March 30th, and our next meeting is on May 26th, 2022 at 1 p.m. But while I'm still talking about the Equestrian Center, the annual Village Renaissance Fair, which Director McCary covered, is on Saturday, May 21st from noon till 5 at the Equestrian Center. Enjoy the Shakespearean dance and musical performances throughout the day on the main stage, and browse the fairs peddled by the village clubs and artists. Look for a flyer that looks like this, which covers more details. Tickets are $5, cash only at the door. Fares will be available for purchase from Viking Foods truck. Beverages, including beer, wine, and a signature drink, will be available. Donations welcome. Park at the upper lot behind the Equestrian Center, or take the shuttle service from 11:30 to 5:30 p.m. For more information, call 949-597-4273 or email recreation@vmsinc.org. Thank you.
Thank you. GRF Finance Committee, Director Rain Sosak.
Thank you. And it was really exciting to hear Director McCary giving that long list of community activities. It's the first time we've heard a list like that since prior to the pandemic. So it's good to hear the community returning to the Laguna Woods that we all know and love. So with that, the Golden Rain Foundation, the GRF Finance Committee, met on April the 20th. The finance report was better than budget by $448,000, which is always good to hear. Again, though, primarily that was related directly or indirectly to open staff positions, things like vehicles not being driven as much because there are fewer people to drive them and whatnot. But that was what mostly accounted for it, but they're right on target. The three main topics of discussion at the GRF Finance Committee were the purchasing policy review, the 2023 business plan, which is in development right now, and the 2021 audit update. The purchasing policy task force had met in April, and you'll hear the report on that in a moment, which will be very brief, met in April to discuss an updated purchasing policy, mainly to look at refining it, making it just that much more usable and less cumbersome a document. And so GRF looked at it and suggested some revisions, and it's going back to the committee. And the 2023 business plan kicked off in March with a couple of meetings to review service levels. And now, of course, staff and everyone else is currently in budget development, and so that business plan is an ongoing project right now. And the 2021 audit update, KPMG, completed the audit and issued a favorable opinion. The audit committee held several update meetings in March and April with KPMG, and the report was accepted into the corporate records on April the 4th. And that concludes the primary functions at the Finance Committee. The next Finance Committee of GRF will be meeting on June 15th at 1:30 right here in the boardroom.
Thank you. Now we move to the GRF Landscape Committee. Director Lewis.
Well, there hasn't been a meeting since March 9th, but the highlights from that meeting, as was stated before, was the approval of new controllers for the entire community. And hopefully at the next meeting, more details on the installation and programming of those controllers will be available. And so we can start saving a little money with our water usage. Next meeting is going to be June 8th.
All righty, at 1:30 in the boardroom and virtual. Okay, GRF Maintenance and Construction Committee, Director Engdahl.
The last formal GRF M&C committee meeting was held April 13th. I say formal because we have had a closed informal sort of workshop on May 11th. So this is kind of a combined update on both of those. The SCE Charge Ready program is about ready to go forward at several destination locations in the village, pending a few final details. Bus benches. Benches will be set back a couple of feet for pedestrian safety reasons and will be the same style as the newer green benches that you have seen throughout the village. The status of the city-required Shepherd's Crook fence revision was discussed, as was the call center remodeling status. Welding shop status upgrade was delayed due to some code changes. We discussed the energy management system for a broadband facility, and apparently we have a number of the components, but a management system is still needed. Community center environment control was discussed also, including some possible improvement here. The golf driving range soil reconditioning was mentioned. I think there's been some work on that. There's still a lot more to be done, but that's where we stand now. The next formal GRF meeting will be scheduled for June 8th. Thank you.
Okay, Clubhouse Facilities Renovation Ad Hoc Committee, Director Franco.
The last meeting was an informal meeting on May 11th, and the Clubhouse 1 committee is going to be expanded to include all clubhouses. The plan is to develop a formal maintenance program for preventative maintenance and upgrade, and the clubhouse managers will assist with staff. With staff's assistance, we'll develop that program. There were some bids on Clubhouse 1, but the two bids, one was 10 times the other, so there was an obvious misunderstanding on the scope of work. So that's yet to be resolved. The next meeting is to be determined.
Okay, thank you very much. Media and Communications Committee, Director McCary.
Thank you, President Munchnick. The Media and Communications Committee met on May 16th here in the boardroom. The committee expressed a gratitude and appreciation for the communications department and especially Eileen Pullen on handling the communication regarding the events on Sunday. Ms. Pullen did come in on Sunday, as mentioned earlier, and they were responsible for sending out the email communication to the residents, keeping us updated and informed about the activities of Sunday. She also spoke about the Code Red system and also encouraging members to sign up for the Code Red system, but also the Orange County Public Information Office as a information source that we want our residents to be more aware of. So there's going to be communication sent out via email to all the residents explaining about the Orange County Public Information System and how residents can sign up for that so that they can be more aware of activities in terms of the Orange County Police Department and stuff like that. So information is going to be going out for that, and also more information encouraging people to sign up for Code Red, so in the event something does happen that we are more aware of it. She also spoke about some of the highlights and tasks that the communication department are involved in, including broadcasting this day 6 days a week, some of the movies that are being shown Monday through Friday and Saturday. She reported also that there have been 10 new docents that have been hired, and they are in training right as we speak, so we will be seeing more docents out on the docent tours. The website ad hoc committee was reported on, and there has not been a meeting of that recent, so that meeting is to be scheduled. Paul Ortiz gave an update on the cable network and broadband services. He reported that there's a 22% increase in subscriber count compared to a year ago. More people are watching Village television and subscribing to YouTube channels. He also reported that they are finding that more people are streaming and using the internet to view a lot of their content. He reported that paid channel subscriptions are down as a result of people moving towards streaming service. There was also a report on the cable network operation, the first quarter report. The first quarter cable TV network cost residents $22.29 per man per month. The cable network operation budget for 2022 basically calls for $24.21 per man per month. The national average for cable television is approximately $110 per month. So we definitely have a great deal when it comes to our cable. The first quarter for broadband service costs each resident $11.72 per month. The broadband service accounts for 42% of GRF's non-assessment revenue. He also gave some information about the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel receives 67,000 views in the past 28 days, and part of that is because of some of the movies that are being shown. He mentioned the one movie, Beyond the Red Carpet, with Francine Brokaw and Lady Colin Campbell, received over 35,000 views. So residents are really subscribing and watching stuff on YouTube. The Internet subscriber report for the first quarter, 10,861 Internet subscribers in April of 2022, and Internet subscribers for March was 10,851, so we lost about 100 subscribers for the month of March. So in terms of Internet prices, they have not increased since 2014. The 64% of subscribers use 30/3 megabytes or less. GRF shares revenue with West Coast Internet. The non-assessment revenue for the first quarter equal to $468,295,000 and in prices. So the next meeting is scheduled for June 3rd, I believe.
It says June 20th here.
June 20th, here in the boardroom. And that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Mobility and Vehicles Committee, Director Bada.
Thank you. Our committee meeting was held on April 6, 2022. We have no new information again to share currently. Our last meeting was on, like I said, April 6th. The next meeting is on June 1st at 1:30 p.m. in the boardroom. However, we have had a Agewell meeting update on May 4th at 1 p.m. at Clubhouse 1. A lot of good information was shared. and there was good participation from the residents. Thank you.
Okay, Director Wayne, Security and Community Access Committee.
Thank you. As you can see, the last meeting was on April 25th. We've had no activity since that time. The next meeting will be June 27th at 1:30 p.m. in the boardroom, and it will be virtual as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Disaster Preparedness Task Force, Director Rain Sosek.
Yes, thank you. The last task force meeting was on March 29th, 2022. And the highlight of that, which was shared at our April meeting, but I share it again today, was a request by the task force for volunteers to be good neighbor captains in the case of an emergency. They have a special form for you to fill out. It was posted, and I hope still is. And to remind you that their office is right here in this building, in the community center on the main floor. And that was the primary outcome of the March 29th meeting. The next meeting is scheduled for May 31st at 9:30 in the morning in the boardroom, but also as a virtual meeting.
Next up, report of the Laguna Woods Village traffic hearings, Director Franco.
The last meeting was held on April 20th. There were 4 violations, 2 parking, both were found guilty. 1 stop sign violation was also found guilty, and 1 was rescheduled. The next meeting will be tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock.
Thank you. Now we move to the Information Technology Advisory Committee, Director Laws.
Yes, the Information Technology Advisory Committee, also known as ITAC, last met on Friday, May 13th. Since I updated you all in April, the contract with Avantico, which is the consulting firm that we are working with on this effort, has been signed. This consulting firm has identified and made available their key project team. They've delivered a development and test environment for us to start using, and over a dozen discovery workshops have been scheduled to occur throughout the month of June between Avantico and the finance staff to review the basic functionality of the new system and confirm which requirements must be met by the new system. Again, the new system is Microsoft Dynamics 365. And a reminder, phase 1, which is what we're currently working towards, is focusing on the finance functions. The next scheduled meeting is Friday, June 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me. Excuse me. Purchasing Ad Hoc Committee, Director Rain Sosek.
Thank you. As already reported at the GRF Finance Committee report, the Purchasing Ad Hoc Committee met on April 7th prior to that GRF Finance Committee to work on the purchasing policy to try and refine it. What we had done so far was move to the GRF Committee, and it is continuing ongoing work. The next meeting will be announced.
And Director Laws, I skipped you. Director Lewis, I skipped. I don't know why.
It's all right.
I apologize.
It's all right.
Director Lewis, I skipped you related to the
GRF Strategic Planning Committee.
Strategic Planning Committee.
Yes. So the committee last met on May 2nd, and it's just a culmination of the last meeting, the meeting prior, I should say. And there's going to be a survey given to the members of the committee to decide the best direction to go in. And so the next meeting will be to be announced as soon as the survey is sent out, received, compiled, and then we'll move forward.
Okay, thank you, and I apologize, Director Lewis, for the misidentification. Website Ad Hoc Committee, Director McCary.
Thank you, President Mushnick. The Ad Hoc Committee, the next meeting is to be determined. We have not had a meeting in recent months.
All right, and lastly, we have the Insurance Ad Hoc Committee, which, as earlier pointed out, Director Laws, Director Cook, and I currently serve on that committee. We had the first full committee meeting on May 9th. The charter of the committee includes thinking outside of the box to try to identify ways that the two mutuals and GRF can save money on insurance, specifically property insurance. Dan Yost, Insurance and Risk Manager for VMS, presented some material provided by insurance broker Marsh that discussed the use of captives as a way to save money. A lively discussion ensued with the agreement that we all needed more information and a better understanding of just how captives work, and if it would be something appropriate for the village. To that end, it was agreed to invite both insurance brokers Marsh and AJ Gallagher to each present how captives work in terms of their particular organization and the appropriateness of it for the village. This should take place at our next meeting. 3 other ideas were floated that will be examined more in depth as the ad hoc committee continues to meet. Number 1 was setting up our own insurance company. Number 2 was self-insurance. And number 3 was reestablishing the relationship between United and Third to cooperatively purchase insurance. The ad hoc committee will be meeting soon once the presentations by both Marsh and Gallagher are set. And that concludes the updates from the different committees. We now have a request for future agenda items, folks. Hearing none, we'll move to director's comments. I will start with Director Lewis.
No additional comments, thanks.
Director Wayne.
No comments, thank you.
Director Laws.
Just an opportunity to remind members one more time about the upcoming budget meetings for Third. Maintenance and construction, Tuesday, May 31st at 9:30 here in the boardroom. Landscaping, Thursday, June 2nd, 9:30 here in the boardroom. Please come, watch, participate as appropriate. Thanks.
Director Cook.
No comment.
Director Franco.
No comments, thank you.
Director Engdahl.
No comment, thank you.
Director McCary.
Just one comment. I just wanted to thank all the directors who had comments on the harassment policy, and I feel confident that the committee will take those comments into consideration and add them to as appropriate for the policy. So thank everybody for your comments and consideration on the policy.
Director Jarrett.
One of the corrections, Director Laws, the landscape budget meeting will be 1:30 in the afternoon on June the 2nd.
That's not what the chart said. The chart said 9:30.
That's the landscape meeting, the budget meeting.
That's why there's confusion.
Yes, and Catherine's looking into it, and she's going to make any adjustments necessary and get back to everybody.
Okay, good. The other comment I want to make, when the tragedy happened on day before yesterday, and people in Gate 14 had no way of getting home, or they were out of town or somewhere else, another location when it happened, and they had to, shut down Gate 14, period, the gate, and they had to do that. So I contacted Siobhan, I contacted Robert, actually, and then I contacted Siobhan and our Carlos, and also Judith Troutman, who's, I guess she's still disaster preparedness. And I asked if we could work together on something to help the Gate 14 residents get home from wherever they may be, because it was late the other night when they were able to get through the gate with their cars. So a lot of them had to walk up the hill. So Director Troutman, she told me yesterday that we'd work together on a plan. So anyway, I just wanted to tell the folks here that there is going to be a plan for Gate 14. Anytime, any future event may happen such as that. Thank you.
Director Ain-Sosak.
No comment, thank you.
Director Bada.
Currently, no comment, thank you.
CEO Foster.
If I could, I have 2 quick updates based on questions that were asked earlier. The first one is about July 4th activities. There will be a golf cart parade from 11 a.m. to about noon. That starts at Clubhouse 5 and ends at Clubhouse 2. And then from noon to 6, there will be live music at Clubhouse 2 with food, beer gardens, and so forth. And then secondly, the difference between service orders completed and number of surveys sent. There are 3 main factors. The largest one is that not all service orders are associated with a manor number. So if it's a pothole, for instance, it's not associated with a manor number. Secondly, the survey started in mid-February, so you missed 6 weeks of service requests. And thirdly, the emails not being on file. Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Strada
No, thank you.
and Michaela.
No comment.
All right, the only closing comment I have is I certainly understand the board members who wanted to hold off on the 28-day concern related to the harassment policy. I take the position that if it does come back with substantial changes, that I also would support putting it back on a 28-day notice at that time. So I find that behavior, or those votes by our members completely appropriate, and I understand why it was done. So thank you. Other than that, we will recess and reconvene upstairs for our closed meeting. Thank you.
President Muchnick, what is the start time?
Excuse me?
Can you clarify the start time for the meeting upstairs?
Start time.
So I
Start
could,
time, it's, let's call it 12 o'clock now, let's say 12:30? So 12:30.
Okay.
12:30.
thank you.